Steve. Now, learning English verbs isn't easy, is it? In fact, it can seem a bit of a nightmare. All those irregular verbs and so many tenses. How are you supposed to learn how to use them? When to use them? So, how many verb tenses are there in the English language? What do you think? Well, despite seeing all those, in fact, there are only two: the present and the past. Whoa, you say? That can't be right. I mean, apart from all the others, what about the future tense? No, sorry. So, there's no tomorrow, you might say? How do we talk about things that are going to happen? Ridiculous, you might say. Now, hold on. Don't shoot the messenger. That's an idiom. It means don't be angry with the person who delivers the message, who says something that you don't want to hear or you think is wrong. So, put your gun away and let me explain. In the terminology of linguistics, English is a language with only two tenses, past and present. That's because, according to linguistics, a tense is indicated by a distinctive verb form, like I arrive is in the present tense, because the idea of present tense is expressed by the single term arrive. I arrived is in the past tense, because the idea of past tense is expressed by the single form arrived. In grammar, tense is a time, the time of a verb's action, the state of being, which is either present, something that's happening now, past, something that has happened, or the future, something that's going to happen. So, for example, we have I walk, I walked, and I will walk. Now, hold on, you might say. You just said that there's only two tenses, present and past, but now you're talking about the future. Well, the future tense in English, unlike some other languages, we don't have a way of modifying the verb to make it into a future tense. We talk about the future tense using different modal verbs. We use will, and actually we have other ways of talking about the future. We use going to. I'm going to see him tomorrow. We also use present tense. The train arrives at 10 o'clock. It reminds me of an old joke. The present, the past and the future walked into a bar. It was tense. Whether or not we think of the future as tense, what about the past and present continuous, the present perfect, the past perfect, the future perfect and so on? Well, really, they're what we call aspects of verb tenses. The aspect of the verb gives more information about the state of the verb, its action. They relate to the verb's relationship with time rather than when exactly it happened. And the aspect of a verb is determined by whether the verb expresses a fact, that's a simple aspect, a continuing action, that's the continuous aspect, or a completed action, and that's the perfect aspect. Or the end of an ongoing action. That's the perfect continuous aspect. The simple aspect. I often listen to music. I listened to music yesterday. The continuous aspect. I'm listening to music. I was listening to music last night when you phoned. The perfect aspect. I have listened to music since my childhood. I had listened to music for a while, and then he arrived. Of course, that's the past perfect. The train has arrived. The train had arrived when I reached the station. The perfect continuous aspect. He has been listening to music all evening. He had been listening to music for 2 hours when I got there. In 2027, I will have been listening to music for 20 years. But you thought that all these were called tenses. Did your teachers refer to them as tenses? Maybe. But actually speaking, they're not tenses. Yet traditionally, that's what people think of them as. And you find that many websites refer to them as tenses. What about your course books? Do they refer to them as tenses? It might be worth checking. You may be making an assumption that they do. So, now should you forget everything that you've thought of as being true and change your terminology? Should you use linguistic terminology? No. It gets very confusing. Focus on basic English usage and think along these lines. English has 3 main tenses: present, past and future. Each of these tenses has subtenses. And with tenses and subtenses, there are 12 in all. So we have simple present, he sings. Present perfect, he has sung. Present continuous, he is singing. Present perfect continuous, he has been singing. Simple past, he sang. Past perfect, he had sung. Past continuous, he was singing. Past perfect continuous, he had been singing. Simple future, he will sing. Future continuous, he will be singing. Future perfect, he will have sung. Future perfect continuous, he will have been singing. That makes 12 tenses and subtenses, whatever you choose to call them. Which of these tenses do native English speakers use the most often? And the most important for you to learn? The present simple. Hooray! That's easy. It's used for simple statements. You never do your homework. I usually have dinner at 7 p.m. The washing machine doesn't work. And then the future simple. The future word will. Native speakers use this tense all the time, especially for spontaneous decisions. It's cold. I'll close the window. I'll make you a cup of tea. The next most common tense used in spoken English is the past simple. We use it to tell stories about things that have happened. We talk about our holidays and our work, people we've chatted to, what we've said, what they've said. We tell people the news, things we've done, or what someone else has done. I went to see Brenda yesterday. Frank told me that, did you watch a match last night? And then we have the present perfect. Oh dear, groan. Sorry, I know it's probably the most hated tense. It can be difficult to get to grips with, but we native English speakers use it a lot. We use it to talk about things that have just happened. I've just been to the bank. Things which started in the past and continue to the present. I've lived in the UK all my life. Things that have a bearing on the present. I've just lost my wallet and I have no money to buy a ticket. And we use the present perfect about experiences without being too specific. I've seen that film. There's no time or date to it. We don't say, I've seen that film in 2003. We'd say, I saw that film in 2003. We'd use the past simple. I'll be making a video about the use of the present perfect and the past simple very shortly. And finally, on tenses that we use most often, I'm going to include the present continuous, because we use it not so much for what's happening now, although we do use it in that way, but we use it for a planned event. So that makes 5 tenses, subtenses, which I consider the most important, the most commonly used. So what about the past continuous and the past perfect? Well, yeah, we do use them occasionally. So with those two, that makes 7. So which tenses don't we native speakers use so much? Well, we rarely use the future perfect, the future continuous or the future perfect continuous. And that goes for both spoken and written English. If you think about it, it's rare to use these tenses in normal conversation. I mean, to say something like, oh, by this time next week I will have lived in Mexico for 10 years. You do need the future perfect to say that kind of thing, but, you know, it's not often, is it? Or, this time next month I'll be lazing on a beach in the Caribbean. Yeah, well, it's kind of a once in a lifetime that you're going to say that. Similarly, we rarely use the past perfect continuous. It's not often in normal life that you're going to say something like, I had been waiting 10 minutes before he showed up. Native speakers would be more likely to say, I was waiting for 10 minutes before he showed up. So, which English tenses should you learn? Well, of course, you need to know all of them in case they ever come up, in case you ever need them, and especially if you're going to be studying for an exam. But knowing those which I've just gone through, the ones which we use most often, can help you decide your priorities and where you should focus your attention. So focus on studying the simple tenses and the present perfect. Over 95% of conversation interactions use these tenses, these subtenses. How many tenses and subtenses do English speakers actually use? Well, 12, yes, because there are 12 of them. How many do we use frequently? 5, as I've said. So, it's not so much of a challenge when you think of it that way, is it? That's all for now. I hope you found the video useful and that you've learned something. As I said, I'll be producing a future video about the present perfect and the difference between the present perfect and the past simple. And also I'm going to make another video about how we talk about the future. I think that's important as well. Right, I'll see you soon. Please subscribe so you can see the future videos, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now.